We're joined today by Naomi Linda Kahn, who is the Director of the International Division of Regavim. First of all, thank you for joining us on a podcast and a vlog, so they tell me.
It works. Thank you.
It works. I'm getting trendy. First of all, can you tell us a little bit what Regavim is? It seems to be in the news. I hear it all the time. You guys are causing a lot of trouble. So who are you, first of all?
Well, we're trying to solve a lot of trouble. So who we are is we're an NGO. We're dedicated to preserving Israel's resources. The most important resource that we have is the land of Israel itself, which means that we try to protect the land from illegal use, from encroachment, from all sorts of misuse as well. We try to protect other natural resources, including water resources, air resources, and we try to promote a Zionist agenda so that there'll be a state of Israel for our children and grandchildren to enjoy as well.
Well, hold on a second. One of the things which has been very controversial at the moment, which you've been talking about, is the proposed destruction by Israel of the Bedouin village of Khan Al Ahmar, if I pronounce that correctly. You're taking a very strong stand there, which is that you're supporting what Amnesty is calling ethnic cleansing.
Well, let's backtrack a bit. In 2009, we were one of two petitioners. We, together with the Kfar Adumim municipality, petitioned the Supreme Court to try to compel the state to enforce demolition orders that had already been issued on the first permanent structure in what is now called Khan Al Ahmar. It's not that we're trying to do any ethnic cleansing of any kind. We're an NGO that's not...
Why do you want to destroy a village?
First of all, the village isn't really a village. It wasn't really there before. It was created by the Palestinian Authority and the European Union in order to take control of a very strategic piece of land in Area C. This contravenes the Oslo Accords, which puts Area C under full Israeli jurisdiction, and it contravenes international law, which states that even if you consider Israel an occupying power, Israel is the only authority that can issue building permits. Now,
you're throwing a lot out, and I want to pick up a couple of things all at the same time. First of all, you're talking. You're saying that you're not against ethnic cleansing, but that's what everyone is.
No. We're not. I didn't say we're not against ethnic cleansing. We're not.
So you're in favor of ethnic cleansing.
We're not against ethnic cleansing. We're not in favor of ethnic cleansing. There's no ethnic cleansing involved here whatsoever.
So hold on.
This is not an issue of ethnic cleansing.
I don't understand.
Okay.
Amnesty, B'Tselem, all of those organizations are talking about international law. You refer to international law. And under international law is illegal to move an occupying power, which you said you could use that voice, to move a population from one place to the other. That's against the Oslo, that's against the Geneva Convention. So
that's not completely accurate. Let me just correct you. What is not allowed under international law is to take an indigenous population, a historic population, and to remove them from their historic place of residence outside of the borders of that area, of the occupied area. Now, the population at Khan Al Ahmar is not a historic population, nor is it indigenous to this area.
Yeah, but it has schools there, it has buildings.
There is a school there. There is a school there that was built by a European NGO, Vento de Terra, in 2009. This is not some historic village. The Italian NGO that built this school built it for a very clear political purpose, for the same purpose that the Palestinian Authority placed water tankers there in order to attract and settle Bedouin exactly in this area. And that is in order to take control of this strategic location.
You'll excuse me, it sounds rather ironic for someone who I assume would support the settler movement in the West Bank to be complaining about people putting in temporary buildings, putting in water, putting in a school, putting in sounds somewhat familiar. Isn't there something about the kettle calling the something black? I mean, the settler movement is doing the same thing.
No, not exactly.
What's the difference?
I'll tell you exactly what the difference is. First of all, the Palestinian Authority published a plan in 2005. Then Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, Salam Fayyad, published a plan that explained how they were going to create a Palestinian state specifically in Area C without the need for negotiation or compromise of any kind.
What's the name of that plan?
It's called Ending the Occupation, Building the State. And it's known as the Fayyad Plan. You can see it online. And it outlines very, very clearly where exactly the areas would be, the areas of concentration would be, the areas that needed to be taken over illegally without negotiation. I remind you again, the Palestinian Authority only a few years before that signed on international agreements witnessed by the European Union and the United States that they would negotiate the status of this specific area. So instead of negotiating the status, they're creating facts on the ground.
But everything you're arguing about creating facts on the ground is exactly what the settlement movement is doing.
There have been no settlements. Let's just put this out there now. There have been no settlements created in this area for decades. And the only thing that's been built in this area, in Area C, has been built with European Union funding. They're using Bedouin as place markers, as pawns, to create this contiguity that will create the backbone of a Palestinian state without the need for negotiation or compromise. And they're doing it specifically in Area C. There are Bedouin in Area A, there are Bedouin in Area B. The only Bedouin that receive any sort of assistance or support from the European Union are the ones in Area C. And specifically the ones in Khan Al Ahmar are being forced to stay there because it's such a strategic point. It's against their best interests. It's on a major highway. It's a dangerous location.
It's interesting you're saying that's not what they're saying. They're saying it's not against their best interests. They want to stay there. They're not pawns. That's their home. That's where their school is.
That's what they're saying.
Being demolished. It's not the Palestinian Authority. It's the Bedouin are saying.
Well, the Bedouin are saying more than one thing. We actually have on tape, you can see it on our website, go to Regavim, and you'll see we have tape of the head of the tribe there, Ed Abu Khamis, who says, the Europeans and the Palestinians are telling us, stay put, keep your mouth shut, don't move, and don't agree to anything the Israelis offer.
Israel did offer...
Other parts of the same tribe came to an agreement with the state and relocated and were compensated and moved to another location very near to where this group was offered a relocation site, and there have been no problems.
Isn't the site that, sorry to interrupt you, isn't the site that the Bedouin were offered is actually near a dumping ground?
The dumping ground hasn't been active in over 5 years. It's a landfill site, and it has been carefully, thoroughly checked for environmental safety by engineers.
It's still a dump.
It's not a dump. It hasn't been a dump in years. It was a dump for a short period of time, and it hasn't been a dump in years. It's the outskirts of an Arabic-speaking suburb of Jerusalem, Abu Dis, which the Palestinian Authority has, which there was talk in the past of establishing Abu Dis as the capital of the Palestinian state, the Jerusalem capital of the Palestinian state. Whether or not that happens, this area is an area that is meant to be negotiated. The status of this area, the people who live in it.
Isn't the major problem with this area is that effectively and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying as far as the political consequences are concerned, because the whole issue of it, it's not an issue of it's illegally built or not. It's a question of that this is E1. And it's not a question of Area C, it's a question of E1. E1 is an area which is intended to be an area of building which would connect to the Ma'ale Adumim settlements, Kfar Adumim, all of that area to Jerusalem. And if we're talking about building reality on the ground, the Israeli government is seeking to create a major settlement block from Jerusalem to Ma'ale Adumim, which we know as E1.
Understandably, this would protect the capital of Israel. You understand that
in other words, what's the problem you have with this? The problem you have with this is that it's actually interfering with your settlement plans.
No, the problem that we have with it is that it is illegal. That if you want to change something in this area, you have to negotiate. And that is the whole point of the Oslo Accords. If you don't want to uphold the Oslo Accords, if you want to nullify them, if you want to undermine them, we'll cancel the whole thing and start again. Get a better deal, as President Trump would say. But right now, the deal that is in play, the laws by which we have to abide, are the agreements that are signed and still in play. Therefore, that is the problem we have with it. And you'll notice that in E1, the state of Israel despite its intense desire and possibly need and security requirement to build in this area, has never built in this area. And the only things being built in this area are being built illegally without permits and undermining the Oslo Accords by foreign concerns, the European Union, in support of the Palestinian Authority's Fayyad plan.
So you would be happy to apply the same principle to settlements which many claim are illegal, which are being funded by foreign sources, whether it's outside America and so on and so forth.
We
have a double standard here.
No, Regavim does not have a double standard because we don't support illegal construction anywhere. We don't support illegal construction by anyone. There are legal ways to get these things done. There are legal ways to build homes. There are legal ways to expand. There's natural population increase, and there are ways to address housing needs. The way not to address them is to build illegally on a major highway in a strategically critical area in which there are international accords in play. No matter what system of law you look at, Khan Al Ahmar is illegal, and it should not be allowed to stay where it is.
What would you argue to those who
illegally? They're knocked down completely, and there's not been 10 years of negotiation and debate and compensation offers and packages, etc., etc. When the Supreme Court decides that something was built in a Jewish settlement or near a Jewish settlement or as a Jewish settlement and it's illegal, it is knocked down to the ground immediately and without delay. The same should be true for both sides. Migron, Amona, Netiv HaAvot, all of these places. Netiv HaAvot is an even more ridiculous example because the state itself said this place would be legalized. The problems were completely technical in terms of a municipal boundary, and the court said a decision has been made. Whether or not it will be legal or illegal in the future, it is at this moment illegal. It must be knocked down immediately. And those homes were knocked down. And that is exactly what should happen when people build illegally. Now, this has been going on for 10 years. They've had at least 3, possibly 4 different alternatives offered to them. They're being offered an extremely generous compensation package for relocation. And I'd also like to point out...
What are the details there? What are they being offered?
They're being offered for each wife in each of the Jahalin family, not just for each household, because these are polygamous families. Each wife is being offered a fully developed residential plot, something like, I'm sorry, I don't want to misstate the amount, but a very substantial monetary compensation for their illegal homes that they're living in right now. The state of Israel has already created an alternative school on the alternative site in Jahalin West, hooked it up to electricity and water, paved roads, put in all the infrastructure necessary, health clinics, access to transportation, everything else.
What would you say to the claim that, I mean, it sounds all very rosy, but the reality is that what you're doing is creating the South African Banterlands. In other words, you want to have Palestinians in certain areas, then they can do their own thing. But the problem that is raised here is it's not the first time. If you have a look, for example, Amnesty quotes that since 1967, Israel's destroyed something like 50,000 homes in the West Bank. From 2000 to 2017, over 10,000 people have been displaced in simple examples. So it's not the question of this one village, but it's a policy of trying to, you would disagree with ethnic cleansing, but create realities on the ground where the Palestinian population doesn't interfere with the new borders of Israel, which seeks to, at the end of the day, annex areas, Area C.
I have to disagree with pretty much that entire statement. Just the same way that you can say that thousands of people were displaced, Palestinians were displaced, those are things that were created, again, illegally, in areas that are supposed to have their status negotiated. All of the pressure that is supposed to create an impetus for this Palestinian Authority to come to the negotiating table, which they have refused to do. And why would they? If the European Authority is creating the Palestinian state without the need for negotiation or compromise, creating, funding anything the Palestinian Authority decides that it wants to build, and then raising an international outcry and accusing Israel of breaking the law, when in fact all of these things were illegal to begin with, then there's no impetus for negotiations of any kind, and you've pretty much ruled out the possibility of a peaceful solution or resolution to this issue. These areas were left for negotiation, and no negotiation is happening. That does not give you the authority, the ability, the legal right to just take the law into your own hands and build wherever you want.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not sure that the settlement movement would necessarily agree with that last sentence there.
Which?
The law doesn't allow you to build wherever you want. If this is the land of Israel, surely Jews should build wherever they want.
The Supreme Court agrees with that statement, and therefore we have a system of law, and if the Supreme Court makes a decision, the government carries out that decision. That's the only thing we have to base our lives here on.
Hold on. Why are you quoting the Supreme Court to me? Why are you supporting?
The Supreme Court has found in 5 different rounds with 12 different panels of Supreme Court justices that this settlement, this outpost, Khan Al Ahmar, is illegal and should be removed.
Oh, hold on. In an article that you wrote in the Times of Israel entitled Restoring Balance to Israel, and some of our listeners can listen to and read it, with Restoring Balance to Israel, you're actually pretty critical of the Supreme Court of Israel.
I am critical of the Supreme Court, but that doesn't mean you can disregard it. You can't disregard what the Supreme Court says. I certainly believe that there should be some changes made, and we certainly support changing certain things about the system. But that doesn't mean that we support anarchy, that we don't believe in the rule of law, that we don't obey the law. If we go in that direction, there will be no state of Israel. There will be nothing here but endless war. We have to base ourselves on a mutual respect, A, for signed international agreements, and B, for the law of the land. Without that, we have chaos. There's no way to move forward. So although we have certain criticisms, we're still a democracy. We are still allowed to voice criticism. On the other hand, when the Supreme Court makes a decision and all possibilities for appeal have been entertained and there's a final decision, it has to be carried out. Otherwise, you make a mockery of the law and we have nothing left to move forward with.
Well, I know people listening to us in the nature of podcasts always listen to us, and they're normally at the gym. So I think what we have guaranteed is that they're going to be running a bit faster. That was a big exercise, and I didn't move. So put me on
just to get the blood pumping, it's good.
Put me on 1,500 calories a day. Now that's a walk ride. That is definitely a walk ride. Thanks very much for joining us. It was great.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And hopefully we'll see each other again soon, and not just over.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.